All right. Is it up? So, this is the, in Israel, they just finished the whole Yom HaShoah business. And believe me, every year it gets worse and worse in terms of thinking of what was going on there. And it is our obligation to remind the world and not to forget nor forgive for what was done to the Jewish people, and also not to compare other things that happened to what happened to the Jewish people, because it never happened and probably will never happen again to anyone. With all the pain that they have and what's going on in Ukraine, it's nothing like happened in the Holocaust. I'll tell you that for sure. This week is Parashat. Which Parashat are you done? Acharei Mot. Parashat Acharei Mot, usually everybody talks about the two sons of Aaron, Nadav and Avihu, and so on and so forth. I want to take a different turn this year, maybe. In Israel, this week, they read, next week's parasha, they read Kedoshim, because of Pesach, so they have one parasha. And I do believe, if we'll maybe go with a trend of what we want to say today, that it kind of makes sense that these two parashiyot are together. So, the fact that men, humans, is connected not only to our world, our physical low world, but also connected to the upper worlds, gives us humans the ability to bestow some of that holiness that comes from the upper world to our world, and to actually bring this and to make this place into a better place. The main goal, or the main focal point of this week's parasha, will try to go according to some ideas that Rabbeinu Bechayai had put out. And I think that something, when I was going through it, all of a sudden I saw like a little light coming out in the box up here. The Torah says, "Bazot yavo Aharon el hakodesh." In that fashion, Aharon will enter the holiness. How? Befar ben bakar lechatat ve'ay le'olah. Two different types of korbanos, sacrificial animals. Then it says, "Kutonet bad ilbash." He's going to wear a robe from cloth. Bad kodesh ilbash u'michnaseh bad, and pants. There's going to be al besaro, going to be on his flesh. U'be'avnet, with a sash or something like that. He's going to wear it. U'bemitznefet bad, and a hat made out of cloth also he's going to put on his head. Bigdei kodeshim. These clothing are holy clothing. Ve'rachatz b'mayim besaro u'levesham. He has to go to the mikvah before he puts this clothing. Now, when you read this, it's kind of all of a sudden, when you pay attention to this, I don't know, for me there was few things that came out like right away. What came out right away is like, that's clothing, man. I mean, such a ritual about clothing. I mean, we're not wearing some kind of a kimono or something, a ritual. It's just clothing. It puts clothing, right? What do you want him to do? Why does he have to wear this clothes all together? And why does he have to wear it like this? And why the Torah tells me to wear it in that order? So in the Perush to Pasuk Daled, Rabbeinu Bechayai say the following: Yadua ki chelkei haguf ha'adam shlosha. There are three different parts or sections in the human body, and these are keneged shloshet chelkei hametziut. against three different parts of reality. וזה להורות, and this is to show us, כי הוא כולל כל העליונים והתחתונים. Mankind includes within him both heaven and earth. So when you, which is it's an amazing idea. So according to this comparison between the parts of the body to the three parts of reality, as we say, Rabbeinu Bechayei explains on the list of the clothing that we had in Pasuk Dalet, and that's what it says, Umichnase bad ihiyu al besaro. The pants going to be on his flesh. And now he says, וזה ממותניו ולמטה, שהוא החלק השפל שבאדם. From the hips, because we do know the hips don't lie. From the hips down, that's where the pants will come. Let's say he wants to wear the pants up here. No, from your hips down. Why? Because that's the lower part in terms of quality, not in terms of location of your body, right? These are the things that you do, not the best of all actions of your body. That's where your human sewer is and some other exits like that. That's the lowest part in your body in terms of, again, spiritual quality. Ube'avnet bat yachgo. He's going to wear a sash on his, over it. And that's he called emsaut guf, and that's the middle of the body. So right from your belly button up, keneged haolam ha'emtzai, to correspond with the middle world. Ve'u chelek olam hagalgalim, and that's the heavenly words, the skies and so on and so forth. Ubemitznefet bad itznof, right? The mitznefet is imagine like a chef's hat that he puts on. Derech ha-mitznefet la'anicha berosho. The way to place it is in your head. Ve'arosh hu ha'chelek ha'elyon ba'adam. Your mind is the superior part in who you are. That's in your thought, your intellects, and so on and so forth. Ve'u mechuvan keneged olam hamalachim. This is against the spiritual world, corresponds with that. Shu elyon v'nichbad min hashar. That's the most superior reality of all other realities. So there is the world here, the sky, the rest of the universe, and then above and beyond the universe, outside of the envelope of the universe, that's where the spiritual world exists. Which of course does not contradict anything that you would learn in basic quantum mechanics, in terms of how the world is, or the universe is, and so on and so forth. So now, if we say that the pants are corresponding with the lowest part of your body, with the most, call it behemoth part of your body, which correspond to this world that we live in, right? And the belt is keneged olam ha'emtzai, as we said, and the head for olam ha'malachim. So okay, yofi, chazak u'baruch. But what's the purpose of that? What's the reason that you compare between this to this? Why did Rabbeinu Bechayei says that? What's the purpose? And it says that mankind, kolel kol ha'elyonim v'atachtonim, he includes everything that is in the heaven, above it, and here on earth as well. And he writes the following: Mizeh yesh lo koach lehamshich habracha, because of this combination of including everything within him, he has the ability to draw down the blessing, velashpia koach elyon batachtonim, and to bring about, call it the heavenly energy, from up above, from above the universe, down to this earth, and make this place into a better place. A malach cannot do that. An ox cannot do that. A human could. And it says, Af ki hakohen hagadol hameyuchad le'avodat hamikdash, right? Even though the Kohen, which is the high priest, does that, the fact that the person is not only connected here, but also connected over there, that's what gives you the ability to pull and to draw down the bracha down. However, you should know that because of this connection, you can also, God forbid, go back up and go the wrong way. Lehavdil, chaz v'shalom, to say, I don't want to compare it. Let's say, for example, you have a sewer line. The job is to move things out. What happens if it backs up? It becomes a catastrophe. You have to call Yonatan, he gets his people in, right? And saves the day, right? Now, lehavdil, it happens like this also. If we have the ability to pull, because we are this creature that exists in all aspects of realities, and there's more than one reality, and we're able to pull it down, by doing the wrong thing, we can also mix it up. And that's the reason, by the actions that happen throughout the generation, there's a separation between the Yud and the Hey and the Vav and the Hey. When we do a mitzvah, we always say, Leyached, Shem, Yud Keh, Bevav Keh B'yachad. To bring it back together, that's our intent. So we have to be very careful, because with anything good, there's an equivalent of bad against it in order to make it fair. So we need to take a tremendous responsibility in our abilities to influence reality. Of course, it's up to, even to the spiritual world, we can only go with our action up to a certain level. Beyond that, there's nothing that we can do about it. But to whatever we could, we already made some damage. Our job is to fix it. So that's what Rabbeinu Bechaya says here. However, by the Kohen Gadol, it comes even to a greater emphasis, this whole concept by the Kohen Gadol, which is meyuchat to avodat Bet HaMikdash, because of what he does. Because the whole avodah of Bet HaMikdash is to make makom ba'elyonim b'tachtonim. So he, by doing so, we'll see what he does. So by him, it's even more emphasized, and it's for us an example. In other words, the Kohen Gadol is an example for us of our abilities and our potential, what we could and should do. However, Rabbeinu Bechayai also goes and deals with the order of the way the things were said. The Torah said the order: Michnasei Bad, Avnet, and then the hat. What kind of thing is this? If I want to put my shirt first, so what? Is there anything wrong with me putting my shirt first? Maybe I want to put my pants first. What should I put first? So Ben Bechaya says the Torah does not say things al bochera. There's a reason why the Torah said what it had to say. And there's a reason that we all should learn from that as well. Don't forget, again, that this week's parasha corresponds or goes usually together with Parashat Kedoshim. So Rabbeinu Bechaya says like this, and I'm quoting, V'hineh seder halevisha, the order in which the Torah refers to. If there are any questions, let me know. From milemata lemala, first where the lower part, then go up, הייתה מחשבת הכהן הגדול משתתת בשלושת חלקי המציאות ממטה למעלה כסדר לבישת הבגדים. The machshava, the thought of the Kohen Gadol would drift into those words, into the worlds, by the order he put. First it was here, and then it was going up to the cosmic, and then it will go beyond that. וזה שהתחיל הכתוב, and that's the reason what the pasuk said, right? Bekadesh v'siyem bekadesh. Right? I'm sorry, Bekodesh v'siyem bakodesh, right? Because it says, Bazot yavo Aharon el hakodesh, right? V'yitzot b'gdei kodesh, right? So it starts with the kodesh and ends up with the kodesh. And it teaches us how to actually sanctify ourselves in the appropriate and the right way, what we call Kedushat Elyonim. If you want to really become holy, the only way to become holy is you don't get a certificate from a college for that. It doesn't come to you because your father was holy. It comes because of what you have done. And what you have done is determined by how much you desire to be close to God. Because the HaKadosh Baruch Hu, He Himself, God Himself, is the source and only source of not every power in the world, but also of holiness. Unholy means further away from God. Holy means closer to God. You should know that if you want to know, there are different types of, for example, of energy, right? There is mechanic energy, electric energy, biomagnetic energy, million different types of energy. Kedusha, holiness, in the way of halacha, is also a form of energy. It's a reflected energy, but it's a form of energy. When I am far from the sun, let's say you are in Pluto, it's freezing cold there because you're far removed. But when you are closer to the sun, the energy that will come from the sun, you reflect it and you become also a heat source. It reflects on you. At night, we get the light from the moon. It's not from the moon, it's from the sun. That's the way it works. Kedusha, holiness, is a form of energy. Spiritual energy. Tum'ah is not an energy. Tum'ah, impurity, is lack of energy, lack of liveness. That's what it is. When we say powers of Tum'ah, I want to tell you it's lack of Kedusha. In other words, there's no energy there. So now what happens is, if you want to be Mekadesh yourself, is you have to be Mekadesh yourself by thinking about three different types of realities. In other words, if you want to be holy, now let's take the body and divide it into that. If you want to be holy, in other words, you need to think holy thoughts. First of all, as they say, quote unquote, you got to control your lower part. You got to get it, you got to sanctify it. You make sure that you use it only for aspects of Kedusha, only for aspects of mitzvah. And it needs to be covered. And you need to sanctify it, because these are holy clothing. Remember, the Kohen has to go to the mikvah before he puts this clothes. So first of all, you got to purify yourself. Then you got to get this under control. Like when you were young, the first thing that you do for a child, I mean, again, Kedusha is not going to come in a place of chaos. Kedusha comes in a place of order. And there is order in the world because God had put it into place. God did not create chaos. The concept of Tohu Vavohu is not chaos. So when you are a child, in order for you to start becoming a functioning human being, the first thing that you learn to do, and that's maybe your first milestone, is what? To control your bowels. Not what you eat. That's later on. So and you need to control this. You need to learn how to sanctify yourself. Controlling it means you're not going to defecate on yourself or urinate on yourself all the time. Because these are aspects of Tum'ah. Then you grow up, you become older. This is one type of urge. Now you need to learn to cover it. Now you're going to this part. And most of us spend our times, our years of youth and power on endeavoring and experimenting on different types of food. It's all about eating. It's Habibi, le'at le'at, ochal le'at le'at. Eat slowly. Sanctify your food. And when you get older, you need to start sanctifying and controlling your mind. You can't ask a 15-year-old to control his mind as much as you would expect from a 50 or 60-year-old. If you want to become a holy person, like a Kohen Gadol, if you want to come into the holy, needless to say the Holy of Holies, you need to be dressed up appropriately. And you need to dress yourself up, not only, so therefore those clothings that we wear are not just physical clothing. They are resembling of our spiritual clothing. That's why it is important to wear clothing of tzniut. The clothing that you wear of tzniut, the clothing that you wear are an indication of your closeness to God. And that we need to understand. It's something that you say about yourself, that I'm not a beast. I'm wearing those things because these are big day Kodesh. I mean, by all means, you will, I guess, I not would have to, but would probably agree with me that if you're wearing a tuxedo or like a very fancy suit, you're going to act different than if you're wearing a wife beater and shorts and flip-flops. It's a different behavior. Clothing are important. It's very difficult for me to agree with someone to tell me that his wife is very spiritual. She's so spiritual she wears a bikini. Can't be. She's not holy. Those clothing that we wear are not just a fashion statement. That's why a person needs to be careful what he's wearing and how he's wearing. And their clothing, and that's what the Rambam said, your clothing needs to be clean, no stain, rips, and so on and so forth. I don't understand the people who wear ripped jeans. I mean, you got to be an absolute moron to spend so much money to wear ripped clothes. It's not comfortable. I mean, why would you wear ripped clothes? So these are the things that he's talking about. And the way we put it on is according to this order. In other words, what he's telling you, there is no shortcuts. You can't have shortcuts. There's no jumping, steps or there's not in the process of becoming holy. And the way which would be, right, as he says, מחשבת הכהן גדול משוטטת בשלושת חלקי המציאות ממטה למעלה, right? As you wear your clothes, once you wear your clothes in an appropriate order, according to Rabbeinu Bechayei, he says, ואם הלך בדרך זו, if you wore it appropriately, אז מחשבתו מתקדשת בקדושת העליונים. The ability of the Kohen Gadol not to lose his machshava, his mindset, when he's doing the avodah, depends on the way and the order that he wears his clothes. Right, Avner?
Right.
You want a pillow?
No, no.
Okay. Now, so the issues of the Kodesh, of holiness and sanctifying is very, very important and very significant in the psukim, the verses that starts our parasha. That's why the list of the clauses starts with the word Kodesh, as we say, Kotonet Badilbash and so on, and then it finishes, and it says Bigdei Kodesh, and these are Kodesh. So your clothing are are not just garments, are also items of holiness. They would reflect of how holy you are. So we can find, or if you look at this, we can learn from the list of clothing and what he says to be able to, by doing so, and sanctifying yourself and having a machshava, to be able to bring down the kochot elyonim, the superior powers, all the way down, and to do to do the pe'ula, to do the appropriate action, the way it should be. And the itkachut has to be from here, from down up. And then you see, you can, for example, start learning Kabbalah before you learn Chumash. There is an order. You don't join a dojo lehavdil and you get a black belt and then you work yourself all the way down. It doesn't work like this. There are no shortcuts in anything that needs to be done skillfully and appropriately and responsibly. You'll have to walk the walk. There's no way to do shortcuts. There's no way. You have to do it. So is to sanctifying yourself, to learning how to sanctify yourself. And so when you pay your clothes, now you might understand, all of a sudden, maybe I can now reflect on the halakha that tells me how to wear my shoes. I have to put my right first. I have to put my left after. I have to tie my left. I have to tie. Remember when we spoke about the difference between Japan and Israel? And Am Israel, right? Yesterday we spoke about this. That in Japan everything has a form. Everything is ritualistic. In the day-to-day, there are rituals. For example, I don't know if you know, but if you have a bowl of rice, you have chopsticks. Let's say 1 second you want to take your telephone, you're not going to put your chopsticks in and take it because that's a sign of death. Like it reminds them of the incense sticks that they put for the dead people. So they don't do it. There's a way how you're going to slurp your noodles in your mouth. There's a form for everything. Lehavdil in Judaism, we have the same thing. You don't have to go to Japan to do that. Everything in Judaism has a form and the right way to do so, and its gear, and the purpose of that is to do one thing, to help you sanctify yourself, and by sanctifying yourself, sanctify everything around you. So now for a person who is not Shomer Torah or Mitzvot, maybe it's hard to understand. But imagine what would you say if you used to if you used to be Shomer Torah or Mitzvot, and now you're not? Now you need to understand what is actually you doing. You're sabotaging.
Lacking awareness.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you're destroying it for all of us. It's like a virus. It spreads. It's rust. We need to make this place into. Listen, you're not going to make this world into a better world by eating a steak with butter. By following the halacha. So how do you make yourself? Well, first of all, I need to follow the proper halacha to cook my food. After I've followed the proper halacha to cook my food, I need to be able to consume it in the right way. I need to say a bracha rishona. The halacha tells you how to drink. Don't drink bevat achat in one shot. Don't fill your mouth up, and so on and so forth. By the way, this shiur is dedicated Leilui Nishmat.
Chaim ben Victoria.
No. Victor Chaim ben Chaya Victoria. ולהבדיל לרפואה שלמה of אבנר בן חפצי. ושאר כל חולי ישראל, and I forgot Gabby's daughter, but his wife's name, but for her as well.
Anael bat
Rivka? Anael bat Rivka. Oh, שיהיה לה רפואה שלמה. You understand? So all of a sudden, you realize how important is those things that you do. And then I make bracha achrona, and then I make brachot through the whole entire process, from shechting the animal, which I make the bracha, to salting it, to cooking it appropriately, to eating it with a bracha, to making a bracha after I'm done eating, to make a bracha asher yatsa when I'm done with the whole process of evolving the food. Now I made the whole thing into holy. I'm fixing that attribute that was missing in the world. And it all has to do with your clothing. It has to do with the order you do things. You can't skip things. You want to eat something, salt the meat. Cook the meat, and so on and so forth. So we need to understand what we're doing here. Now, there's another thing that Parashat Acharei Mot talks about, which really has to do, thank you, Motek. It has to do also with the Kohen Gadol, and that's really the avodah of Kohen Gadol in Yom Kippurim. Right, Yitzchak, you're going to be Kohen Gadol Be'ezrat Hashem. Now, the avodah of Yom Kippurim, really, we spoke before about energy. It really has to do with the energy of chesed, with an attribute of chesed that comes to you, which the energy of chesed is the koach, the force, that allows us to give. A person that is cheap is not Baal Chesed. A person that gives is a Baal Chesed. And the tremendous power of Chesed is really the power of healing. When you give, that's the ability to heal. That's why, according to the Rambam, a doctor should not ask for money. Hello, doctors. A doctor should not ask for money to heal people. Remember, every Jewish doctor has his Maimonides thing by it, but they just put it there for decoration. They don't actually. They should review it like once a week, at least. But Maimonides statement, whatever it is for the doctors. All right. So, and today, unfortunately, that there's no Kohen Gadol. What do we do? So I'll tell you what you do. Now that there's no Kohen Gadol, you ready? Drum roll, anybody? Everybody's a Kohen Gadol. Everybody takes the part of the Kohen Gadol. Everybody takes a segment of what the Kohen Gadol would do. And we need to remember and to understand that. In other words, we need to ask ourselves all the time, how can I put chesed or include chesed in every action and every thought that we have? In other words, what could I give? And I've told you this 1,000,000 times. When people get married, and they get married in order to get, that marriage is going to be hard, is going to be deen-oriented, is going to be restricting and constricting, and is going to be horrific. When you get married, and the reason why you get married is to create an opportunity for you to constantly give, all of a sudden, you have a good chance to have it. Why? As we know, the word man is ish. The word isha is a woman. If you're going to take the name Yud K, which is associated with chesed, you get esh. You get fire. Why? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu only gives. So we need to figure out a way, how could I give? How could I help? Where is the act of chesed within me so I can give, so I can share, so I can give? Not only you give me, you give me, you give me. And look what happens when we create a society that is based on taking. In other words, that you would give me and I would not give you anything. We have a deterioration of a society. And since this society that we live in becoming more and more of you give me and I get nothing, from both parts, both from citizens and the government, both want to see the other one as an opportunity to get, not to give. Well, we get what we're getting, and it ain't good. When the government doesn't ask itself, what could I do to serve the people better? Not my agenda, not my seat, the people better. When the people say, what could I do to serve this country better? When you don't do that, what you see today is just the beginning. And this is, by the way, when you do include the chesed, as we said before, you are entering the energy of healing through all the actions that you do. You're able to heal a person and heal wounds. I'm not talking like, Jesus, like healing. Talking about wounds, I'm talking about internal wounds. Bad energy that is within people. Like Aharon. This is the way to actually also go through the difficult days of Chodesh Nisan by doing what we call Avodat Hashem B'Chesed. Of course, what considered to be Avodat Hashem? Right, Avner? The Zohar says at the beginning of his words, 2 psukim from Tehillim. What does he say, Avner? Well, start reading Tehillim every day. Ivdu et Hashem be'yira gilu lefarav bir'ada. Right? Tehillim bet. Tehillim bet. 11. Yud Aleph. Ivdu et Hashem be'simcha bol lefarav bir'nana. That's in Tehillim Kuf 2. So 2 different Tehillim. And the Zohar is asking, how is it possible those 2 psukim go hand in hand? The first one says, Ivdu et Hashem b'yira, gilu bir'ada, Ivdu et Hashem b'yira, with fear. Let's see, right? Worship Hashem with fear and rejoice with trembling. The other pasuk says, worship Hashem with joy, come in front of Him, rejoicing. How is it possible? Tchlit, make up your mind, either this or this. Either this or this. Says the Zohar, what I've been saying all the time. It's always good to see something that you thought that was yours, and all of a sudden you find the Zohar said it. Oh, good, I wasn't wrong. The Zohar says that the yirah that we have is not what we call fear today as we use it in an everyday thing. It's not fear. Yirah is the same otiyot of re'iyah, yud, resh, aleph, hey, resh, aleph, yud, hey, the same letters. In other words, to see. Because there's something there's with our ability to grasp, to understand, which is completely different than fear, right? And fear is usually a situation which you don't know. You're afraid of what is not known, or you're afraid of a situation, and so on and so forth. So when we are talking about here, we're talking about yirat kavod, awe. Yirah is awe, yirat kavod. We see and we understand that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is greater and better than all of us. And when you realize that, then you have to start acting in anavai, with humble. You have to be humble. You have to be a little bit more down. And this is exactly when you come down in yourself, you become humble. This is only the place in which you can grow up from and then bring back to your life koach hachaim, the life force, the bracha, the shefa. Only when you empty yourself from yourself, only then you can bring God into your life. Only when you said, my urges are not important, but rather God's will is. Not what I want to do, rather what He wants me to do. Not what I want to do, rather than what He wants to be done. Only then HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, there's room for me here. Let me enter this guy's life. But when you fool yourself, you can't fill anything up. God cannot enter your life. You fool yourself. And that's why Moshe Rabbeinu, that saw himself even as a nothing, he didn't even see himself as dust. I'm a nothing. He was the one who was closest to Hashem. He was the pure crystal that the light went through it straight without any distortion. That's because he was so humble. He was not an object. He was space that HaKadosh Baruch Hu went through him and came down to this world. He was the vehicle. We could become the vehicle as well. And our job is to sanctify ourselves to become a chariot, a vehicle to bring about God's light and blessing and healing and kindness to this world. How? By what we act according to His will. There's no room for arrogance to feel a big shot. We are not big shots. The biggest big shot, when he's 90 years old, still needs a finasteride and to wear a catheter, and he's in a wheelchair, and he has somebody feeding him. It doesn't make a difference how big shot you are. How long you are a big shot? What? For 80 years? You're not a big shot anymore, buddy. There's only one big shot, and that's HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Next to him, we're nothing. Not even as dust. We're nothing. When you realize this, now there's room for your life. Now you can allow yourself to do what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants you to do. So Avodat Hashem that we do is not done for us. Is done for us. We're not doing HaKadosh Baruch Hu a favor. HaKadosh Baruch Hu does us a favor by giving us mitzvot. You're not doing a favor to HaKadosh Baruch Hu by not eating pig or not eating a steak with butter or eating shrimps. It's for you, not for him. You're not doing him a favor. And by doing that, trying to do Retzon Hashem, the will of God, it's a constant maintenance of flowing of energy from the upper worlds and bringing holiness from the upper worlds down to us. Because everything that happens because of a result. There's a cause and effect, and so on and so forth. And there are certain things that we do and certain things we don't do. And then but that depends on you. And that's why some people say, to some people the Torah is Sama Chaim, elixir of life. To certain people the Torah is Sama Mavet. The same thing, you can wear your clothes to sanctify yourself, or you can wear your clothes to unsanctify yourself, if you know what I mean. That's why it's important that if you love your wife, and if your wife loves herself and you, she should dress up in tzanua clothing. I didn't say ragged dolls, like a rag doll, like overalls. Wear something that it's nice, but tzanua. Of course, it will always be a question, why would a man would like to parade his wife like she's some kind of a camel in front of other people walking half naked? I don't understand. It's beyond me, I'll tell you that much. Imagine somebody, your wife goes like this, nice back open like this, somebody looks at that, when you look at my wife, I'll give him a high five in his face, turn his head 180 degrees. Why would you do that? Where's the Kedusha there? Where's the holiness there? Where's Retzon Hashem for that? So you can wear clothes and you can wear clothes, you can do things and you can do things, but is you doing it because of that's what Hashem wants, or because that's what you want? Are you bringing chesed to the world? Are you bringing kedusha? Because if you're not actively bringing kedusha to the world, the tumah comes in. There's no place that it's, neutral. It's either this or this. Our job is to increase the kedusha all the time, to strive to go up higher and higher. It's the same ladder. On the ladder you can go up, but the same ladder you can go down. That's a Sulam Yaakov. You decide what you want to do. And the question is, of course, how do we do that, right? How do we keep the mitzvah, and how do we turn the Torah into elixir of life? So the answer is, according to the Zohar, is only through joy. You have to be happy. You have to understand how lucky you are that you are able to do the mitzvot. You're able to do. And the mitzvot are not an obstacle for you to get where you want. The mitzvot are, as a matter of fact, steps in the ladder for you to get closer to Hashem. And this is your free choice. You choosing to become holy. You choosing to be happy. So I don't want to hear a complaint from anybody, I have to get up early, or my Rebbe in 5th grade sneezed on me the wrong way, and that's why I'm not keeping Shabbat anymore. I just get up and smell the hummus. Move on with your life. Be responsible. Learn how to choose. Maybe the problem is not in your Rebbe in 3rd grade that sneezed wrongly on you, or your father that told you get up in the morning and make feeling. Everybody likes to blame their father. My father was a hard man. My father was this. My father was this, and so on and so forth. Maybe the only thing that your father did not tell you to do right is to make choices, or maybe you don't want to choose. You just like other people to influence you. By the way, I'm going to tell you, if you have friends that think it's a joke for you to go off the derech, you should know they're not your friends. I don't care how much blood buddies you are, you're not your friends. Your friends should take you up and lift you up and bring you together. And if you can't walk yourself, they're going to put their arm around you and they're going to help you go up the ladder, because we don't leave any Jews behind. And we need to understand, we need to teach the people not just how to keep the mitzvot, but how to choose to keep the mitzvot. And the way to do so is to stop complaining about our mitzvot. It's too early, it's too late, it's too this. Rejoice in the fact that you are alive to do the mitzvot. And this is your choice. This is your choice. And you decide in which frequency are you going to connect yourself. In other words, it's all in your hands. You own it. Shabbat Shalom.